let's make a movement system where you have to pull to move yourself around in VR. All right, to start with, let's go ahead and open up our XR Pawn or VR Pawn if you're on any version earlier than 5.7. Not sure why they renamed it. It does all the exact same things as a VR Pawn. Here we are. And we're going to start by basically just figuring out what direction do we need to be moving in when we pull. So the first thing in that step is to figure out when we are pulling. So we're going to go ahead and hook in to our grab because I want the same control, the grip, to control when we are pulling the player and when we are holding things. Maybe that doesn't work for your game. If so, you would just bind it to a different input. But if you're binding it to the grab, we're going to use this is not valid pin. And we need a variable for that. So is left pulling air. It's going to be Boolean. And then we're also going to need to know where the pull starts. So left air grab start. So if we are grabbing, but we're not grabbing a grab component, then we are pulling air. So that's true. And we are going to start at this location, which is wherever our left grip is located in the world. There we go. And then when we release, if we were not holding a grab component, then that means that we were holding air, and we are now no longer holding air because we've released. Same thing for the right hand. Gotta rename them for the right hand. Same thing for right release. And there we go. So now we know when we are grabbing air and when we have stopped grabbing air and where our grab started for both hands. The best way to figure this out is simple on tick. We're going to do a sequence. First in our sequence is going to be our right hand. And just to make sure everything's working, we are going to start by just drawing a debug arrow. The start is going to be at our start, and the end is going to be at our end. We'll set the duration to 0 since it's on tick. Thickness can be like 0.1, arrow size, let's make that 2, line color. I always like to think of right as red. And then similar thing for our left hand. I'm gonna stick that down here. In my mind, left is blue. And let's replace all these variables. If you didn't know, you can just drag and drop directly onto them. And if they're the same type of variable, they will replace themselves with what you just dropped on. Super handy. All right. Let's go ahead and see if that is working. So now I'm grabbing. When I grab nothing, we draw my arrows, and the arrows are being drawn from where we started grabbing to our hand. But if I grab a grab component, no arrows show up. Cool. So that's what we want. We can go ahead and keep going. Now, the next thing that we want to know is what is the direction from our start to from the start of our grab to our hand's current location, and what is the magnitude of that distance. So that's going to factor in how fast have we gone from the start to our current position, and how far away is it. Before we can do that, though, we need to actually be able to move our player with this information. So the easiest way that I have found to do that is by having a capsule collider as the origin of our VR pawn. 88 is a good height for most people, with a radius of 10 would be pretty good. If you need this to be more precise, then we can set up a function where the height is determined based on the player's HMD height. I'll release a short tutorial on that later as a little bonus video. And when I do, I'll put it in the iCard up there. But for now, we're going to go ahead and turn on physics and lock rotation. This lock rotation will prevent the player from immediately falling over. Basically, they won't be able to rotate, which is good. But by unlocking the position, they will still be able to move around with physics. And I know some of you might be thinking, oh, this is going to be a little bit jarring. The player's going to be able to move without actually moving input if they get hit by a physics object. It's not that jarring. This used to be kind of the golden rule of VR. Don't move players without their input. This isn't as much of a problem anymore since refresh rates in headsets are much better. All right. You can see I started this earlier to make sure I knew what I was doing. So let's go ahead and remake that function. Calc offset for air grab. And this is going to need to know which hand we're talking about. There is a built-in, if you're using the VR template, e-controller hand. That will get you a lot of information, because this can technically be anything that a motion controller would be bound to. We only care about left and right, but it's a nice little enum to be able to reuse, just in case you are doing something a little bit more complicated. All right, so first is direction from the start to our current hand's location. And if you didn't know, with vector math, to get the direction from start to end, you subtract end from start. I don't know why it works that way. I mean, I know the answer is math as to why it is not just start minus end. I don't know, math is confusing. So, if it's left, we want the left. If it's right, we want the right. And this will be our start. And then as for our end, we're going to copy this. And we are going to get the current location of the corresponding motion controller. So we have end minus start. To make our math a little easier to work with, we're going to normalize it, which will mean that the sum of all of the components of this vector add up to 1. So that is our direction. And the other thing we're going to need to know is our magnitude. And again, this is going to factor in the distance from the start to the end, as well as the speed of the controller. That's just going to be a float. So because it's going to factor in both those things, eventually we're going to multiply it. The first component of that is the distance. And the second, actually don't want that to be a vector anymore. Actually, I think I did. We want the linear velocity of the component. This is how fast our motion controller is moving. So I lied. I did want the vector, and we're going to get the length of that vector. And because this could be really fast and we don't really want it to be, we are going to do a map range clamped. This will also provide an upper limit on how much the controller's speed can affect the actual player's speed. If you don't want that, just make this map range unclamped. I found mapping 500 to 2 works pretty good. Feel free to play with those numbers though for yourself. The in range is how fast the actual speed of the controller. The out range is what that multiplies our player's speed by. All right, let's go ahead and implement this. So for our right hand, this is our right hand. Simply multiply the direction by the magnitude. And we're going to put in one additional number just so we have a little bit more control over this. And I'm going to call this the air grab approach speed, because this is determining how fast we are approaching the new position of our air grab. I've found 5 is a good number for this, but again, feel free to play with this if you want. Next, we're going to subtract that from the capsule's current velocity. And then we're going to multiply that by a few things. First thing we're going to multiply this by is the mass of our capsule, so that the weight feels appropriate. The other thing, we're going to create another kind of controllable variable here. I'm going to call this the air grab damping. I think it's actually dampening factor. This is basically how much will kind of air resistance play into this is a good way to think about this. I found a damping factor of 0.3 works pretty well. And last thing is we don't want them to move up and down. So we multiply by 110. This will mean that any kind of speed in the Z, which is our up-down axis, will get canceled out. And then we add this as impulse to our capsule. And then we're going to do the same thing for the left hand. Compile and save. I believe if we did everything right, that should be it. Let's go ahead and fire up our playtest. Oh, I have immediately fallen through the world. I have forgotten something. And that is that by default, in VR, you spawn on the floor. We don't want to do that. We want to spawn not on the floor. Or have I set the collision to something wacky? Let's see what's going on here. Okay. The collision of our capsule is set to overlap all dynamic. We need to be block. Simple enough. And also, just so you know, because this is a weird fun fact, Unreal likes to set their collision of their floors as dynamic. So I like to just set those to block all to make sure that they are static, because they should be. The floor isn't moving, i.e. not dynamic. Not sure why that's the case. Let's try that one last time here. And nothing is happening. Okay, Well, let's go through a bit of debugging. So I'm going to select my XR pawn. I'm pulling my left hand. You see that that is working. So direction. Our magnitude is 0. Let's find out why. Oh, I'm silly. Okay. These are getting the linear acceleration. They need to be getting the linear velocity. That is my bad, but my defense, it is a little late when I'm recording this, and you should not do programming when it's late at night. I also added a little debug arrow here. So now, unless there's one other problem, we can pull, but we're going in the wrong direction. I don't want to throw myself. Ooh, sorry, computer. I mean, maybe you do. This is actually kind of interesting. I like throwing myself around the room. But let's make it work kind of like we intended. Like you have a rope in front of you and you're pulling yourself along. Really simple. All we do is we take this normalized value and we're going to multiply it by -1. And this will flip the direction of our vector. Super simple. Pop back in. And now, you can see, I am pulling myself forward. Now, I feel like there's too much friction here. So let's adjust that. And we can adjust that via the physics material. Let's see, are there any by default? There are. Let's try ice. That might be too much, but this will give us a good kind of baseline. There we go. And kind of keep moving there. That's pretty good. This is another thing. So part of the reason I added those variables we can adjust. Let's increase our approach speed to, let's say, 10. Let's see how that feels. There we go. Now I feel like I can really pull myself around the room, which is what we're going for. So to kind of adjust the speed, change this number to change how the damping works, the kind of air friction, reduce this number for less air friction, and then change the physical material. You'll want to change the friction of the material. Less friction means more kind of sliding, easier it is to get going. All right, well, that's going to do it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, let me know what you think of this movement system down in the comments below. It's personally one of my favorites, but I haven't really seen it used outside of the game Gorn. Very fun, kind of beat 'em up style VR game. Good workout. But yeah, let me know what you'd like to see next in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a like if this helped you. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.